weeping for Haynes. Barton sabi that good, sabi different. He can speak now, we waiting. Barton had remained silent. Everyone knew he had joined with Haynes in the ill-fated attempt to escape with the gold. She say, Libby makes sick she belly. She say, Libby missing one eye and both him ball. If Libby her man, but she thank great God he not, she put him out the door. She say, Wilson and Tiamooko same Libby. Hooray! Billy Blair said, delighted at this discomforting of his old enemy. But Wilson was not amenable to the rules of debate, had moreover an ugly temper. Not many weeks later it was to be his death. He took 2 steps towards the woman. You black bitch, he said. Is that calling me names? Stand back. Without conscious thought, Paris had interposed himself. Wilson's darkly bearded face was on a level with his own, the eyes in their cavernous sockets curiously vacant and unseeing. Stand back, he said again, though not loudly or threateningly. This is a time for words, not blows. Or do you not know the difference? He added with a sort of involuntary contempt. Wilson continued to look sullenly at him. He showed no sign of being cowed, but after a moment, perhaps sensing opinion was against him, he fell back. Paris turned and looked at the woman standing there. She had not given ground. She was wearing still the coarse cotton shift they had given her on the slave ship. The passion of her words had deepened her breathing. Her eyes flashed and her head was thrown back on the splendid column of her neck. Paris, who still had no woman at that time, was swept by a tide of admiration and desire more urgent than anything he had known, flooding his whole being like a sudden brimming of the vessel in which lay all the thoughts he had had of her from the very first, when he had seen her behind the bars in the sunlit slave dungeon of the fort. He could not keep the feeling out of his eyes, and Tabakali saw it. But it was above all for Del Blanc that this debate, the first one of the whole people together, was a turning point and a revelation. And the nature of this revelation did not feature in Jimmy's account either, because it was mainly concerned with Del Blanc's knowledge of himself. He had seen at once that the Indians should be rescued. Such an act would assert the principles of freedom and natural justice on which he hoped to found this infant republic of his dreams. And it might well improve relations with the Indians, fear of whom, after the terrible death of Haynes, had kept them penned in this narrow space of woodland between the exposed shore and the flooded savannah behind. But he had seen further than this. With a perception colder than he had believed possible in himself, and herein lay the element of revelation, he had seen at once that what became of the Indians was in a way a secondary issue. The slave-takers had to be killed in any case. It was their death that he argued for, with all the force at his command, speaking directly to Paris and the people of the crew, leaving Jimmy to make the best of it he could, knowing that the whites, though in a minority, were more cohesive, had a certain ascendancy still, which would not last long, but might be exploited now, knowing, too, that the intention to kill the men must be formed and stated here, not left to the chances of the pursuit. We have no choice, he said. It makes no difference what is decided about the Indians and what are the rights and wrongs of rescuing them. Personally, I think they should be rescued. But above all, the men who have taken them must be killed. Some of you have already said it. Suppose they come back. Suppose they have seen some of us. We cannot afford not to suppose it. They might return in more strength. Even if not, can we take the risk of stories about us being carried up and down the coast? You know we cannot. We must go after them now before they escape us. Del Blanc was a man transformed. He was still wearing the waistcoat and breeches with which he had left the ship, torn and muddied now, but nothing else about him seemed the same. The years of vague theory, half-ironic rhetoric, generous egalitarian sympathy came together now in this focus of fierce clarity. More than he had wanted anything in his life, he wanted this desperate experiment to succeed. All the people before him, black and white, whether they knew it or not, had been enslaved. He intended now that they should live in peace and freedom without coercion in this untouched corner where they found themselves. 4 lives seemed little against such a dream. To Paris, his friend's face had become unrecognizable almost, cold, preoccupied, and yet elated too. You are talking about killing 4 men in cold blood, he said. Yes, I am, of course I am. old Long said with a vehemence barely held in check.